Jefferson was governor for 2 one-year terms, and at this point, when the invasion started, he was at this halfway point of his second term. And he had told his friends, even in December before the invasion, that he did not want to be governor anymore. He didn't think he was the right person for the job, and he basically tried to get out of it. And John Page, his childhood friend and longtime friend, said, no, you're the man for the job, you need to stay there. And later on, I presume this is what you're getting to, very climactic point of the story, and I think the one thing that you would fairly criticize Jefferson for most harshly, and that is that Jefferson, just as the British were coming, fled. He had no warning like that. He fled. He fled Monticello, of course. And just before doing so, he decided not to take a third one-year term. He had made it clear to some people that he did not want to be governor for a third year. However, at this time, at Virginia's darkest hour, perhaps was not the best time to leave Virginia without leadership. So the legislature, which also fled Charlottesville, fled over the hills to Stanton, and they picked a new governor. This took some time, but at the very time the British had entire free reign over all of Virginia, Virginia had no governorship. And I tell in some detail in the book about the investigation that's then launched by the legislature into Jefferson's conduct, for which Jefferson blames Patrick Henry, rightly or wrongly, and the many weeks that Jefferson spent trying to explain his actions, what happened with the militia, what happened with what he called a worthless navy, and all of that. Fortunately for Jefferson, the British made a crucial mistake by assembling at Yorktown, and all was forgiven. Nonetheless, Jefferson stood up for the legislature and defended his actions in great detail later that year. But this, he wrote, that all of these events left a wound on his spirit that would only be cured by the all-healing grave. This was something that affected Jefferson so deeply throughout his life. And I do write that eventually he did learn some lessons from what happened here. 20 years later, he did become president, and I try to explain in the book a little bit about why he decided to go from saying he'd have nothing more to do with politics after the invasion to deciding that he needed to be the one to be president.
And the only thing I was thinking, the governorship was really a token position, and they could advise and cajole, but they were kept deliberately weak in order that they were not like monarchies.
Jefferson.
And throughout the war, there was a real problem in mobilizing people in Virginia to fight and sending the required attachments to the army. The one thing about Jefferson is he does anticipate Napoleon in believing that when you've got a patriotic citizenry motivated by government for themselves, they will rise up and fight. And so he was always eternally optimistic, perhaps too much so, in his belief that however well the British did, the people would ultimately emerge from behind the hedges and shoot back.
Right, absolutely. I mean, you could see why this was so valuable to have Andrew helping me throughout my research. Time and again, I would come. I mean, it was this. I was talking. I mean, I envisioned Andrew as having just come down from the mountain, having talked with Jefferson, and then tell me what Jefferson, without the accent.
we must open this up.
Can I just mention one?
We loved having our conversations. So you can see.
It was a lot of fun.
You can see why.
Can
Would anyone like to?
Can I just mention one thing, just to feed on that point? You're absolutely right, and I was going to mention this at some point in the talk, and that is, this is so striking. Jefferson believed that you needed to have a weak governorship, as you said, to avoid a new tyrant. And the Continental Army officer who was here, Baron von Steuben, complained endlessly to George Washington that Jefferson would not do enough to call out the militia. And at one point, Jefferson wrote this extraordinary letter where he said, quote, "We can only be answerable for the orders we give and not for their execution. If they are disobeyed from obstinacy of spirit or coercion in the laws, it's not our fault." So now, that sounds a little weak. As the invasion went on, and I read that letter, I said, whoa, what? I mean, the invasion's coming. Your wife and family, are in danger. You're in danger. As the invasion went on, I think Jefferson had an epiphany. I think this is really important, and I'm glad you brought up this point, because as the invasion went on and he realized that the British were having such free reign, he heard of a mutiny in a western county. And he was finally fed up, and he wrote to this militia leader out west. He said, "Go to their houses one by one. Take them out of their beds. If they're not there, go back night after night till you find them." So I think he finally realized that you did need a stronger executive, and he finally did do that. And one of the major reason that they came to Charlottesville and left Richmond was that Richmond was about to be overrun again by the British, and their mission in Charlottesville was to enact stronger laws to force the militia to come out. That's why they came here. That's why Jefferson was at Monticello when he was forced to take flight.